All right, so today we're going to be talking about tracking and motivating employees and management tactics. Mainly, what we're talking about is going to be how do I motivate my employees, and of course, part of this is what we're going to talk about is going to be piecework. Next on, we're going to get into, first off, we're going to talk about productivity versus overhead, then we're going to talk about the piecework discussion. So bear with me as we get through there. First thing is, I want to ask you a couple of questions here. First off, let's see if I can get all my systems to work together here. Let's talk about what would happen to a company if they increased by 5%. If they increased by 5% of productivity, what would that do to them? Well, let's take an example. This is what I really like to do whenever we're talking about these types of principles. Let's take an example and try to figure out how that example enters in to real life. And let's say we have a typical company. We have 6 production people. Now remember, production people are people that go out and actually do the work. So in the case of lawn maintenance, it's people that go out and actually mow the grass. So we have 6 guys that go out there and mow. Let's say it's 3 different crews or something like that. If they do 28 weeks of work, and again, that's different with different sections of the country. You know, you have more or less weeks that you would work a year. But let's say it's 28 weeks of work, and they're doing $260,000 in gross sales. And at the end of the year, they have a 5% profit, which equals $13,000. Now, when I say profit, I want to also clarify that means after the owner's been paid. So the owner is considered part of the company. The owner is considered, the owner's salary is in there, and I would highly recommend that you all not run on, it's quite typical for small companies to run on, the owner just uses whatever's left over. I would highly recommend you don't do that. You set yourself a salary and say, I'm going to get a salary, even if it's a low salary. I'm going to pay myself a salary because I'm an owner, and I'm going to look at myself as an overhead employee. So we've got a 5% after everything's been paid. We've got a 5% profit. Not bad, pretty good actually for the company. But they're making $13,000. So what happens if they increase by 5%? And let's look at the math here of what does 5% look like on that kind of a company. So 5% equals 10 hours times 5%, because they're working 10 hours a day, or producing 10 hours a day, times 5% equals 30 minutes. We just use 10 hours because it's a little bit easier. We do 10 hours here, 30 minutes, I'm sorry. So if your billing rate, that's what we talked about in the last couple of webinars that we've done. We've talked about how do you get to your billing rate. That's your man-hour rate, what you're charging your customers. So your billing rate is $40, let's say, per man per hour. So if you can get 30 minutes of increased production, that means you're getting them to produce 30 minutes more per employee. That doesn't mean that they're working 30 minutes longer, because if they work 30 minutes longer, then that's all that's doing is adding to the salary that you're paying them. We're saying you get 30 minutes better production out of them, and I'm going to show you how to do that. That would be $20 more billing per man per day. So if you have 16 men times 28 weeks, you get to 1,680 hours of productivity. 1,680. That's a 5% increase of that. 6 men, 28 weeks is your total 1,680 hours. That's what you can sell. Remember, we talked about that in the last time. So a 5% increase would be 84 more hours at $40 per hour would be $3,360. Now, in a lawn maintenance company, that would be $3,360 of pure profit, because you're not actually, you could say you're spending a little bit more in gas to do this, but you're basically not increasing any of your costs, because you're getting the guys to be a little bit more productive. Just a little bit more productive is giving you, so a 5% increase in productivity could increase your profit by $3,360 per year. So if your profit before the increase was $13,000, if you have a 5% increase in productivity, it actually creates a 26% increase in profit. Now look at those two numbers. We said a very minor 5% increase, 5% increase in productivity will create a 26% increase in profit. That's amazing. That's something that you ought to look at, and you ought to say, whoa, you're saying that if I can increase my productivity just a little bit, I could increase my profit a lot. Yes, you could, because it's that last dollar. Sort of like when somebody doesn't pay you. Lately, I think all of us have been going through the collections process, right? And so when somebody doesn't pay you $100, where does that $100 come from? That comes right off the profit. There's no other way to look at it. It comes straight off the profit because you've already incurred all of the expenses to do that job, and now the person doesn't pay you, and so you lose it. Well, on the inverse, or the converse to that, you would say that any increase in money that I can get at the end of the year, after all my expenses have been paid, any increase I'm going to get is going to go right straight to the bottom line as well. So that's what we're saying here. If I can increase my employees by 5%, this is what I'm going to get. So how do you get an extra 30 minutes per day? How do you get that? Well, by employee motivation. For example, how many of us have children, right? What is the difference between a motivated employee and one that is not motivated? That's pretty obvious. I have 5 kids of my own. You've already met Davy, and probably some of you have dealt with Charity. She did sales for us for a while, but now she has 2 kids. I'm grandfather times 2, and very happy for it. So she's no longer working for me, but she's doing well. She is working for me. She's raising my grandchildren. But anyway, how do you make more money? We all know by having children, when you tell them go into the kitchen and do the dishes. And 2 hours later, and a bunch of fights and everything else, that maybe the dishes are done, but they aren't really done quite right, and all that kind of stuff. So that is the norm. And you're saying, how in the world could it take them 2 hours to do these dishes? That's impossible. And you're pulling your hair out and saying, if I did it myself, I could do it so much faster. Sometimes that's what happens, is the mom or the dad jump in there and they just say, oh, I'm sick and tired of this. Let me get this done. And 15 minutes later, it's all done. It's clean. It's better than it ever would have been by leaving it up to the children to do. But here's the difference. Let's tell our children when they get up to do the dishes, they say, if you can get it done in 20 minutes, I'm going to give you ice cream. What happens? And I think all of us know exactly what happens. They get up, they start running around, they stop fighting, they stop worrying about what's fair and what's not fair, and they start getting the job done. And then when they get the job done in under the 20 minutes or the 30 minutes that you gave them, if they get that job done, then you give them the ice cream. They were motivated. So what's the difference between non-motivated employees and motivated employees? Are that employees that are motivated are going to accomplish so much more. We're talking about a 5% increase in productivity, and I'm talking to you about almost 100% increase in productivity. So what would a 100% increase in productivity do? What would it do if they got twice as much work done than what they used to? Well, how would your employees, how would your company benefit from having employees think and work like you do? Just like we said, the mom goes into the kitchen and gets the dishes done in no time flat. Same thing with you. You look at certain jobs and you say, now why did it take them so long to do this? I could have done this in no time at all. And it would have been so easy to do. So if you could get employees that thought like you, would they work harder? Would they take better care of the equipment? So often you got guys going out there with broken equipment, and then they end up driving all the way back to the shop, and they forgot to tell you, blah, 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 etc. And would they make better decisions? We had one guy come back on our when I was managing lawn maintenance company. And he came back, it was just 2 days after we had started using Velkeys, which are the little pulled ride-on sulkies things. And it was 2 days after we had started it, and he came back from 25 minutes away because his Velkey had a flat and he couldn't use it. And I'm thinking, wait, 3 days ago, you were walking behind the lawnmower. Now you're riding on it. Now because it has a flat, you have to come all the way back to the shop. What is that? And you just ask yourself, where do these people come from? Well, part of it is because they're not motivated. You think about it. Why do your employees work for you? Why do they work for you? Because you're a nice guy? Because you're handsome? Because you've made everything so fun? I doubt it. It's because of money. It's only because of money. You say, wait a second, I have better guys than that. I don't do da-da-da-da-da. Well, I say, false. Stop paying them and see what happens. Everybody, all your employees work for money. That's what they do. And you do business for money. You might enjoy it. It might be wonderful, but you do business for money. So what is their goal? And I like these cartoons that are up here. And I just want to explain a little bit. What their goal is to live. Particularly, I'm talking about somebody, if you're paying them by the hour. And I'll bet you a lot of us here are paying by the hour, paying your employees by the hour. So what is their goal? Their goal is to live. Why? Because the longer they live under your payroll, the more money they make. So what do they have to do in order to make money? They have to keep their heart beating. Now that's really hard to do now, isn't it? You say, well, no, I want my guys to work. They have to work. They have to work. Well, sure, great. They have to work. But you're also telling them, if you're paying them by the hour, that if they stay here a little bit longer, if it takes a little bit longer to do this, that you're going to be able to get, they're going to be able to make more. And on top of that, they get rewarded for taking longer. If they can stretch out 40 hours into 45, boom, now you're giving them some overtime. You're paying them time and a half. You actually have this pot of gold at the end of the week that says, if you work longer, if you take longer to do your job, you will be able to make more money. Time and a half. You get an automatic raise. Boom. Wow. I don't know if you've ever thought that one through or not, but that is exactly what you're saying to your guys. You're saying make bad decisions, make sure, stretch out the time as long as possible, and you will make the most money possible. Look at this Dilbert cartoon up here in the upper right. It says, I just lost the subtle mental connection between my performance and my salary. I get paid the same no matter what I do. I can stand here and flick my fingers and still get paid. Do you realize what this means? Hey, you're getting paid for that, the other guy says. And then the bottom cartoon says, look, Ted, we get paid the same as you, but all we're doing is standing around flicking our fingers. Come join us and flick your fingers. Enjoy a celebration that our performance is not linked to our pay. And then the boss says, I don't know what success sounds like, but I'll bet this isn't it. You are paying your guys to flick their fingers. Now, I don't know if that surprises you or not. So what's your goal as a company? Your goal as a company is to accomplish work in the most efficient way possible. The more you get done, the more you'll get paid. If you don't accomplish work, you don't get paid. Your customer's not going to pay you just because they contracted with you to pay you for cutting the lawn if you don't cut the lawn. If you don't cut the lawn, you don't get paid. So that is your goal. So your goal is to accomplish as much as you can in the least amount of time. And what is the employee's goal? The employee's goal is to live and take as much time as possible. And your goal is to be as efficient and get the most work done. Don't you see this as opposing goals? No wonder you've got so much constriction and so much problem that you have between your employees and yourself and your management. And management is just headachy like this. Because your goal, your guys are actually, it's to their advantage to play dumb. It's to their advantage to not get the work done as fast as possible. You've made it that way. You've told them they get rewarded if they take longer. It's crazy. And yet, on the other hand, you're trying to speed it all up because you know that as a business you make more money if you can get more done. So what are we trying to say today? We're trying to say that the objective should be to align their goals with yours. Make it worth their while to produce, and make sure they make money when and only when you do. Wow, it's kind of simple. Well, I like simple stuff. I'm not smart enough to think complicated thoughts. I have to think simple thoughts. So this is the simple thought that I think. I'm like, hey, if I make money when I get work done, why don't I make it so that they make money when they get work done? Wouldn't that make sense? Makes too much sense, guys. Too much sense. There's so many people that just don't do this. So we have two extremes of how to pay people. Piecework only, which is what we do in our company, or you have straight time with overtime, which is what 99% of the companies out there do. You're saying, well, if 99% of the companies do it, then it must be right. Well, no, not necessarily. If everybody jumped off the bridge, would you? You know, that's what your mom used to tell you. But anyway, so you do piecework only or straight time only with overtime. We already know that we're trying to be a little bit different. We're trying to make things different for that. So how does piecework work? How does that work? And let's talk about some of the things about piecework. First off, you only pay for work done. So the question that we had before we started this was, what happens when a piece of equipment breaks down or something like that? Well, did you get paid? That's the question is, are you getting paid for that breakdown as a company? The answer is no. So if you're not getting paid as a company for that, then would you pay your employee? And the answer is No, you wouldn't. And I know it sounds harsh, but you'll see how it works out. Okay, the other thing is each job is rated in credits or man hours. Okay, we call them man hours in CLIP, and it's all over, all throughout, and we've been going over this in the last couple of webinars that we've been doing, is the man hour rating is all over the place. We watch that like a hawk. It's the most valuable thing you can know about your customers is who pays me the most per hour, etc. And so then this is what we do is every job is rated. So this job might be rated as a 1.0, which means a 1 hour. And that means that when if there was one employee and he worked on this property, I would pay him 1 hour for that property to get it done. So that's the way each job is rated. So you might have jobs that are 1.2s, 1.1s, a 0.8, a 0.6, a 0.5, something like that. But each job is rated, and each employee receives pay for the work accomplished. So if they accomplish more work or less work, they're going to get paid for that work that they get done. So, and only for that work that they get done. So each employee receives the pay for the work accomplished. Meaning that at the end of the day, they look at their route sheets and they say, how many man hours did we actually get done? How many did we get accomplished? And at the end of the day, depending on what they got accomplished is what they're going to get paid. So if they got 8 hours or 10 hours worth of work, that's what they're going to get. So each employee can have different rates of pay. This is how you can distinguish between the foreman and the helpers. The foreman, you might pay $10 per man hour per credit. So at the end of the day, let's say a crew of 2 people come back, and let's say they've accomplished 20 hours between the 2 of them. So you split the 20 straight in half. It's like, okay, you get 10 hours and you get 10 hours. But then you know that the foreman is worth more. He's a driver. He's got a clean record, etc. So he gets $10 per credit. So for that day, if he brought in 10 man hours, he would get $10 times 10 man hours. He would get $100 worth of pay. Whereas the helper, you're only paying him 7, or obviously these numbers have to be a little bit higher, but it makes it easy to work with, $7 per man hour, and they've got 10 hours that he came back with because he gets half of it, and the foreman gets half of it. So they come back, and one of them gets $70, the helper gets $70, and the foreman gets $100. And that's how you can distinguish between the two pays. Some people have gone to Piecework and thought, okay, I'm just going to tell my guys that they're getting a % of whatever we charge. Kind of works, but it doesn't allow you to distinguish between the people that are obviously more valuable to you than the people that are less valuable to you. So I like this system. This is the way we do it. So the results. What are the results of Piecework? Well, what happens when you get the employees working and you get their goals to be even with yours, the harder they work, the more they make. They get out as fast as possible. I don't know if you have this problem, but sometimes we used to have the problem where we had 12 different trucks. And to get the 12 trucks out on the road usually took about 2 hours from the time we started, which was 6:30 in the morning, to the time the last truck got on the road was almost 2 hours later. And it didn't matter what we did. It didn't matter how much we yelled and screamed and how much we tried different types of systems to try to get them out faster, etc. and so forth. It was just almost impossible to get it any less than 2 hours. There was always something, that one guy. Well, you think about it, you got 12 trucks. We had about 30 employees, 30 production employees, and all these 30 guys, there's always a reason. There's always an excuse. There's always something that's going to get them to take longer to get out because you're paying them. So you're paying 30 guys for 2 hours. That's 60 hours of pay that you've just thrown under the bus every morning just to get on the road. That's it. Just to get on the road. They aren't even at their first property yet. Just trying to get them on the road. So when you do a Piecework, they're not getting paid for that time. They're not getting paid for standing around. They're not getting paid for drinking coffee. They're not getting paid for just standing there waiting on the mechanic or talking about the latest movie that they saw last night or something like that. They want to get out as fast as possible. It was amazing. When we went to Piecework and everybody understood it, the very next day, it was 2 days ago, it had taken 2 hours to get out. The time when we had Piecework and everybody understood that they weren't getting paid for standing around anymore, they were out in less than 20 minutes. Less than 20 minutes, all 12 trucks were gone. And I'm sitting there and I'm just shocked. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking, wow. Again, that's the difference between motivated and unmotivated. Second thing is they spend as little time as possible in chit-chat. Amazing what happened. Nobody wanted to talk to anybody. Everybody just wanted to get the stuff get the equipment onto the trucks and get out there and get moving. And nobody was spending time talking about this and that and the next thing, their girlfriends or their movies or the latest computer game or whatever. They get the equipment out quickly. When they're at a job, you should watch these guys as they get out. It's like a ballet. They're like foof 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 and just onto the job and getting it done. They make good decisions about breakdowns and other situations. They're not going to come back because a Velcro tire is flat. They're going to stay out there because they're going to realize I'm not going to make this up. If they have some kind of major type of breakdown, if it's early in the morning, they might send one guy back and two guys stay working on another property. Or they might, or if it's later in the afternoon, they might just say, you know what, forget it. We're just going to work with these two pieces of equipment instead of three of them so that we can get more done. But see, they will start making those decisions. Before that, you're the one that's making those decisions, and you're almost always trying to make wrong decisions to people. You're trying to keep them from making the wrong decision because they're making wrong decisions. They're doing stupid things. Instead, when you put the motivation in their laps and you say, you guys work, you guys get it done, and I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to watch you and I'm going to see how you get it done. When you do that, you can sit back and they start doing smart decisions. The 7-Eleven visits will be to a minimum. I remember at times when I was out with people and they're on straight time, and they would say, "Hey, where do you guys want to eat?" And somebody would say, "Wendy's." And the closest Wendy's is 30 minutes away, so they would drive 30 minutes to that Wendy's. Then they'd log out, clock out as we ate our lunch at Wendy's, and then clock back in and drive 30 minutes back. So basically, if there's three of us in a truck, our employer just lost 3 hours worth of pay. But if you go on Piecework, they're not going to get paid for that. They're going to say, you know what, let's just hold off for 2 more jobs, and then we'll be close to the Wendy's, and we'll eat it at that point, or whatever, Burger King, whatever you want. I don't care. So anyway, the results of Piecework continued. So what happened? The harder workers make more. This is amazing to me also because I've worked under this system, I've managed this system, and I currently own a company, and we do this system. So what happens with this is I worked harder. Of course, we all think we work harder, but I did think I worked harder. I worked harder than most of the people there, and I found out that I was making 50 cents, $1, maybe up to $2 more than the lazy guy. But the reason for that is there's a minimal amount of money that you have to pay just to get a warm body, and then once you have him, if you're paying somebody $12 an hour, you can't afford to pay the foreman $17 or $20 an hour because there isn't enough in that $45 per man hour that you're charging to do it. And if you charge a lot more, the customer's not going to pay for it. So your differentiation between good workers and bad workers is much smaller than the actual difference in the amount of work that they produce. And that is so disheartening to the very good workers. And a lot of your best workers are going to go off and going to start their own companies because they see that, hey, I could make more money on my own without having to drag this loser guy along with me. But if you go on Piecework, you'll find out that the good employees tend to gather together and be on the same crews, and they'll make $25 an hour. And while the other ones are not going to make much at all because they're too lazy and they're spending too much time, they're going to go. They're going to get out of there. The other thing I found out is that foremen will not tolerate slow workers. This is particularly important. Before, you had the guy who could tell the jokes and tell the stories and everything else, and everybody liked to have him on his crew, and that was fine. We go to Piecework, and we find out that he doesn't really produce very much, and other people say, forget you. I don't want this guy on my job because he's just taxing my own wages. So those are some of the results. The results are your motivation is a whole lot more. Your productivity, is a whole lot more than 5%. We're talking about a productivity increase of sometimes up to 100% of my employees. So the next question that everybody has, like, oh, wait a second, what about quality? What about quality? Well, first off, I'm going to ask you, does time equal quality? And a lot of you would probably say, well, sure, the longer I spend on something, the better it's going to be. Well, I would say no, not necessarily. Because what does equal quality is skill. Skill equals quality, not necessarily time. And a great example of that is I know how to program Most of you guys probably don't know how to program. If we sit down and we try to make a computer program, I bet you I will be done first, right? And you'll be done second. Who took longer? You did. Who has the better program? I hope I do, because I'm skilled at it. That's what I've been doing. Same thing with your life and the things that you're doing. So, so quality doesn't equal time. So just keep that in mind. Don't let yourself get sucked into that whole myth that the longer I spend on something, the better quality it's going to be. That's not true. I've seen some guys who can trim running. They're running, they're trimming, and it's perfectly trimmed. And I've seen other guys that take forever to trim something, and they still leave grass where they're not supposed to. So anyway, just remember that. So the first thing we got to do is we got to develop our systems to maintain the quality. This is true. You do have to do this. This is what you have to manage. But I'm telling you, it's much easier to manage quality than it is to manage motivation. So much easier. So some of the systems that we have in place are workers fix complaints on their own time or pay other workers to do it. So we send them back. You're saying, well, my customers aren't going to tolerate that. You're right. You're right. Your customers aren't going to tolerate that. But if you're sending a guy back, more than 2 or 3 times, it's time to get rid of him. He's the wrong guy. And wrong guy for the job, and let's find somebody else. But if you have them fix the complaints on their own time, or I've had it where they pay other employees to go and fix them, then that really sends a lesson. Remember, why do your workers work for you? They work for you for money. So you're back to that, so it's going to be money, and you have to make it hurt. Second one, you'll have to move the foreman around to have them check up on each other. That's always a good idea anyway, just for cross-training, in case you lose somebody or something like that, do that. The other thing is, the third thing is $25 for each employee. This is what we do, and this, again, puts them on our side. What we're trying to do in our companies is put the employee on our side so that he's thinking with us, and so that his goal is aligned with our goal. And the way we do that with this $25 thing is we take 5 $5 bills. Okay, just imagine this: 5 $5 bills in a clear envelope, and we just line them up in that clear envelope, and the envelope has the employee's name on it. We tack those to the wall in the shop so that it's very visible. Everybody sees it, and this happens at the beginning of the month. And so on the first of the month, we get 5 $5 bills for each one of our production employees tacked up on this wall. So there's a lot of money up there on that wall. And then what we say is, those $25 are yours, Joe or whoever, or Jose, whoever. Those $25 are yours. Now this is what's going to happen. If you get a complaint this month that's a valid complaint, it has to be valid, but if you get a valid complaint, I'm going to take one of those $5 bills out of your pouch, and you didn't get it. And then if you get another complaint, I'm going to take another $5. For every complaint, I'm taking one of those $5. So you've got 5 chances there to do it. But see, what we've done, and I love this kind of motivation. This kind of thing is cool. You're working with, yes, human psychology and things like that. But what's neat about it is that you are presenting them with the money as if it is theirs already. And now it's up to them to not lose it. That is so much more motivating than if you say, everybody's going to get a $25 increase on their paycheck if there are no complaints this month. You say something like that, it's like, huh? I didn't even get that. I don't even know. And after taxes and FUTA and SUTA and all that kind of stuff, I'm not even going to notice it. But if you put the cold hard cash right up there in front of them, some of you might be listening to Dave Ramsey. He talks about that when you're going to buy something. Just bring some cash. Show them cash. Cash is king, But you put that cash right in front of them. You say, here's $25 for you to lose. It already belongs to you. It's already yours. Here it is. Now, let's make sure you don't lose it, okay? Oh, the motivation is so much greater. And the other thing is, when you do get a valid complaint, in front of everybody, you say, okay, we got a complaint from Mrs. Smith, and I've attributed it to, Jose, so I'm taking this $5 bill out of here because he doesn't get it. Everybody else razzes him and says, oh, look at you. So it starts to be a pride thing as well, and we know how guys and pride works. But anyway, so continuing, what about quality? You have to find the right employees. Again, if an employee is going back and forth and you're sending him back to fix stuff, guess what? You've got the wrong employee, and you need to fix that. So you need to get the right employee. So a lot of your employees that you have right now might have to be changed out. I have no doubt about that. But I'm telling you, it is so worth it. It is so, so worth it that you really ought to consider it. Some workers work quality no matter what, and you will have to hire and fire until you find the right guys. That's the way it works. But here's a great question that I have. It's like, how much brain power does your company have? Do you make the decisions? Does everyone depend on you for ideas? How smart are you? Now, it's very interesting. I go to some of these small companies where the owner is just driving himself nuts, and he's so busy, and he's just go from early morning to late at night, and everything's coming through him, and he can't, he's tied to his cell phone. He can't let his cell phone go for a second. And it's this kind of person that I look at, and I just ask him, I say, how smart are you? And a lot of times the business owners, particularly the younger ones, but a lot of times the younger ones say, well, I got to make all the decisions because I'm the one who knows it all. I know better than anybody. It's like, get off your high horse. You're not that smart, okay? You're not that smart. Why don't you dumb it down a little bit? Because you have other people in your business that are more than happy to make decisions, and they'll make good ones, and a lot of times they'll make better ones than you do. But because you think you're the best one, and particularly because you're paying by the hour, these guys are being paid to be dumb. Hello? You're paying them to be dumb. Guess what they're doing? They're being dumb. Why? Because you told them to. So I don't get it. I don't get why we don't do this. So I look at my guys, and these guys are guys that we bring up from Mexico. We use the H-2B program. We bring these guys up from Mexico, and now a couple of them have come here 3 or 4 years in a row. They're wonderful guys. They make decisions better than I ever could down at that level. And they do that because they're getting paid to be efficient. They're getting paid to be productive. And I don't have to use any of my brain power at all. And I just relax. And people look at me and they say, what are you doing, Dave? You don't do anything. What do you do for a living? Somebody will ask me that. And I say, as little as possible. And they say, well, what is your job in the company? And I tell them, I said, my job is to be the most useless person in this company possible. Well, it sounds kind of weird, but that's what it is. I want to use the brain power of all the people that I have around me to accomplish this. So here's an interesting example. This is a real live example. Happened to one of our customers here. He asked when he went on to Piecework, he started watching his man-hour rating, his productivity, efficiency, etc. And he looked at it and he asked him, he says, why was your efficiency so low on this day? Because they saw that the efficiency was down to, 75% or something like that. Here's what they answered. He said the guys, when he investigated, he found out that they did more than they were supposed to for this property. This property has a side yard that we normally only cut the grass, but they went and raked the lawn in the entire property. The crew leader has been doing this property for at least 5 years, and he said that he did not remember if it was supposed to be done or not and never called to reconfirm. So for 5 years, this company has been cutting more grass than it needed to. For 5 years. Until he asks, and he says, what's going on? And then they answer him, and they say, hey, this is what was going on. You're right. I know who this is. So does it work? So here's the question, does it work? And I have a couple of examples. A case in point, in Moyer's Lawn Service, that was the first place that I saw Piecework working. They got more than 25 trucks now, more than 60 employees. They've created 2 more companies, More Medic and Lawn Science. They just keep on doing it. They've been brought before the Labor Department a couple times, and they've come out with flying colors, because as long as your employees agree to this, as long as you're paying more than minimum wage, you're fine. And so anyway, this is one of them. One of the ones. Another one is Lawn Right. Kevin Giesick purchased our company. We had Lawn Right. That's where we started, and he purchased the company from us. And he took it off Piecework and went back to straight time because it's comfortable, because it's easy, because it's something to do. And so after a while, he came to me after many of these presentations, and he's like, Dave, I think I'm going to start this Piecework thing because you said so. And I was like, oh, okay. I do want people to follow my advice, but on the other hand, you're kind of reluctant at times when somebody's playing with their company. But he says, I'm going to do this. So I said, okay, good. Well, let me know how it goes next week. And so he calls me on Wednesday night, and he says, Dave, I went on Piecework this week. And I said, oh, yeah? How did it go? He's like, well, I'm a little worried. And I'm thinking, oh no, what happened? And he said, I said, what are you worried about? He said, well, we have the same amount of work this week as we had last week, but this week here I am Wednesday night, and I'm done, and I don't have any more work for the week. What am I going to do? And I said, Kevin, you don't understand. This is great. That means you have 2 more days of work that you can go out and sell. Your guys have, but I'm going to pay my guys a whole week's worth of, well, so what? You've saved money because they don't have to drive out there for 2 more days. And so they get more money because they're doing that. So anyway, this Kevin Giesick was blown away, and he's never gone back. Actually, what he does is he starts people out in straight time, and he says, if you work hard enough and you work long enough, you'll be able to go on piecework like these other guys. Very interesting. He throws it out there as a privilege. Karen asked, when using piecework, do the crews get paid for drive time? Well, Karen, go back to my statement. Your guys only get paid when you get paid. Your guys only get paid when you get paid. Are you getting paid for drive time? Probably not. Well, then you're not going to pay them. So don't pay them. That's the only way you can do it. Otherwise, see, if you pay them for drive time, what are you telling them? What are the messages that you're sending to these guys? If I'm going to pay you for drive time, and am I encouraging them to take the shortest route? Am I encouraging them to not spend time in the truck? Am I encouraging them, all these things? It's like as soon as you start paying them for stuff you don't get paid for, you're gonna lose productivity. That's where it's going to go. So anyway, how about starting small? So some of you are going to be scared. Some of you are going to say, wow, this makes sense. Others of you are going to say, wow, I can't do this. This is a major change. All right, well, okay, fine. Let's start small. How about a bonus system? You pay bonuses for hours produced, at least that. You say, look, I'm paying you $10 an hour, but you're getting an extra $1 per hour in every man hour you produce. Wow. Well, at least if the guy comes back with 10 man hours, he can get $10 more for the day. You understand what I'm saying? Another way is you could say if you create 50 man hours or more of work, again, you get them to focus on the man hours produced. Focus on the man hours produced. Those are those pretzels that you're selling. If you've been following us through these webinars, you'll see that they're all tied together. This is all one big system, and it's a system to make your company prosper. It's a system to make it work without you having to spend oodles of time and effort and energy on making it work. You create the system. So if they do over 50 man hours, they get 25 cents more per hour on all the hours, or over 60, 50, or over 70, they get 75, something along those lines, but something that makes them pay attention to the man hours. So you align your goals. That's the key right there, is the more you align your goals, the easier management becomes. I want to tell you about a situation that happened to us just a couple months ago, okay? So if you make money, so do they. You get your employees to be partners and make more money. Let me tell you about this story. Last fall, we had a cruise, a clip cruise, where some of you went to. There weren't a lot of people there, but some of you went to this clip cruise. So, and to do the clip cruise, of course, we sent Glenn. I was going to be there, but I had a family thing come up, and I wasn't able to go. First one in 20-some years where I didn't attend the conference. But anyway, so we had Glenn go. We had Jonathan Coleman. Jonathan Coleman runs my lawn maintenance company. Glenn is the vice president of the software company, but he also is he oversees the lawn maintenance company. So I had Glenn gone. I had Jonathan gone. And then I was here at the company, and I had to leave for family reasons. Had to have a few days off, so I wasn't here managing either. So most of our managers, actually all of our managers, were gone for that day, for that week, and the Mexican guys are doing the work. The Mexican workers, the Mexican producers, they're doing the work. And I thought to myself, as I was going through that week. They had a problem getting route sheets out at a certain time. And so then they called me, and they're like, I need these route sheets. Can you help us with these route sheets? And I did. And I said, sure, I'll help you with route sheets. So here we are. We get them done. And I was just thinking to myself, we got a lot of work done that week, these guys. But they were self-motivated. They were self-managed. Nobody had to be there. And I was thinking, if we would have been paying them straight time, somebody would have had to have been at the shop to see them, to get them out, solve all their problems, and they would have been coming up with problems to make it longer. And these are good guys, okay? I'm not saying that, but you gotta, don't pay them to be at cross purposes with you. Align their goals. And how many of you could take all the management out of your company and have it run for a week or even 2 weeks in a row without any input from the managers, because these guys are anxious to get the work done? Not many, but that's the kind of company that we run. So how does Clip help you? ClipXC help you? Well, first off, you have to understand what a company is. So we're going to talk about that for a second here. So a company is an organization that stands between your customers and employees. That's what a company is. And I think understanding this is so important. All the company does is it organizes. It's an organizing entity where you find customers that are willing to pay to get a service, and you find employees that are willing to get paid to do the service. And all you do as a company is put these two together. So that's all a company does. If you think about it in its most simplistic term, you're finding customers that want a service, you're finding employees that are willing to give this service, and you put the two of them together. And you're the organizing factor that goes between the two of them. Consequently, if that's the case, when you use job costing, which is one of the previous webinars that we've done, you use job costing, you're finding out who your best customers are, who pays me the most per hour. And you get better and better customers. We talked about that, how if you send a rate increase to all of your customers, you're going to end up, all of your customers are going to end up getting out rebidding, and you're lowering the quality of your customers. All of your really good customers that have been paying you a lot of money, they're going to go find other companies to do their service. But if instead you just you get rid of the chaff, you get rid of the junk that you have in your customer list, the ones that don't pay you very much, you get rid of those, you're going to raise your customer rate. Now, the other thing we're talking about now is we're talking about raising your employee efficiency, productivity. So if you can raise your employee efficiency and productivity, you see what's going to happen to your business. Your business is going to be pulled up into the middle. And that's how you raise the quality of your business. So by raising the customers, by raising the productivity of your employees and getting better employees to do the work, your business has to succeed. There's no other way. It's almost in spite of you, the business has to succeed. And that's what we're talking about here, is you get your customers to improve, you get your employees to improve, and your business improves. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I wish I was in a room and I could see all of you and see who's shaking their heads yes and who's saying no. But anyway, it just makes too much sense. So how does Clip help you do this? Because that ultimately this is where we are as we're back in Clip. Well, first off, on every job you have the man-hour rating. You see how this one says 3.5. That means this is worth 3.5 hours. So if one guy goes out there and does it by himself, he'll get paid 3.5 times whatever his hourly rate is. If his hourly rate is $10, he gets $35 for this property. So that's the first thing you have to realize. The second thing it does is you have to enter your employees into the system. Now, we talked a little bit about that last time, and your employees should be entered into Clip, and you should keep track of them, and they should keep track of who's on what crew and who's doing what and all that kind of stuff. So this is how and there's a whole manual on employee tracking. So go look in the manual. It's on our website under tutorials. So as you enter the work, we talked about how crucially important this is for job costing, is you have to be able to enter the times that it took you to do the job. So as you go in here, you enter the work, you enter the times, the start and stop times. This is where Clip2Go comes into play. And this is where you really need to use Clip2Go. And sorry if I push this over and over again, but Clip2Go gets your guys to do a lot of this work for you. They're actually tracking it for you. They're taking care of it, and it makes, again, and what am I after? Well, I'm after your success. Your success is our business. I'm after you being able to sit back and being able to create the system that produces income for you. And that's what we're talking about here. So use Clip2Go. Go get Clip2Go up and running. Let your guys enter the times for you, the start and stop times, etc. But you need to have those. You need to know who was there, what it was. So then at the end of the day, at the end of the recording session, you can enter in your employees' times. Or if you're using Clip2Go, it's already there. So again, this is just take work off yourself. Why do more work? So anyway, you do this and your employee system goes in. As soon as that happens, you can go to the reports, employee efficiency report, report dollars and hours. And when you print this report, you'll be able to see what happened with your employees. So for example, we're going to take this little section of a report right here, and we're going to see what was going on in here. First thing we notice is that our gross sales were $380 for this day. So it's a spring cleanup with mulching, okay? So that's where it is, and we have our budgeted time and everything else. So we have $380 in gross sales. The second thing we're going to find out, there were two jobs, the spring cleanup and the mulching, okay? Two different properties. There were two jobs for a total of 9.5 man-hours. Remember, everything is rated in man-hours. That's the only way you can compare apples with apples. So our total number of man-hours that it took is only 6.85. Well, that's pretty good because we had 9.5 hours. You see the blue one says 9.5, but the actual man-hours that we spent out there was only 6.85. So we know that our efficiency is already up to 120, 130%. So our gross dollars charged to the customer, again, is $380. We already knew that, but this is just a breakdown of how we get to that $380. So there's that. The next thing we look at is our budgeted man-hours for John is 9.5 man-hours because he was alone. So it's one guy all by himself. John is doing the work. He should have 9.5 man-hours. The actual time he spent on it, the clock time that he spent doing the job, was 6.85. So he was pretty efficient. That's pretty good. Now the other thing is he clocked in time, though, is 9. So how am I paying him 9 hours when it only took him 6.8 to do the job? That's a great question, and that's what we're going towards. So the actual work time is 6.85 divided by the clock hours of 9 hours equals 76%. So I lost 24%. We're talking about increasing 2% in productivity here. I can see right away that I've lost 24% of my possible productivity. And the question is going to be why? So the man hours is 9.5, actual work time 6.85, it's 138%. So that's not good. Once he's on the job, I can see that he's very efficient once he's on the job, which is he's doing 6.8, it's taking 6.8 hours to do 9.5 hours worth of work. But what happened? What happened with the rest of it? So if I look at it, I take my gross sales dollars divided by the payroll hours, which I paid him 9 hours if I'm paying him straight time, equals $42.22 per hour, which means that he produces $42.22 for every hour I pay him. That's pretty good if that's the case. Again, this is I'm showing you this because this does have to do with straight time as well as piecework. With piecework, it's a lot simpler than that. Our company target is 40, so we know that we're still doing pretty well, and the man-hour rating is set right, so we don't have to rebid this one. This one is within our parameters. Our gross sales of $380 divided by the job hours is $55.47. This is way above my target, so if he worked piecework, he and I would have made really good money. Okay? You realize that because the piecework, I also, the other thing I was talking about before we started was with piecework, my actual labor costs are set ahead of time. I know exactly how much money I'm going to spend in labor before the year even starts. I already know how much money I'm going to spend in labor, and that's that. It doesn't matter if it snows, if it rains, if it whatever is going to happen. Why? Because these guys are on board with me, and they're going to make money when I make money. So there it is. So the question is, with this employee right here, could I make this employee 30 minutes more efficient? Would it be possible? Well, yeah, because he's really efficient when he's on the job, but it took him either a long time to get there. I would go back to him at this point. I would say, hey, what happened here, John? Why did it take you so long? Where's the wasted time? Is it so much travel time between Jansen and Rabin, or what is the problem? So how does Clip help you do this? Well, you go back to the day and you say, what happened on that day? And you can look that up, and you can look at the date that we're talking about. You can look at the jobs there, and we can see from the file maintenance, we look at the employee's hours for the day. Okay, that's how you pull it up. You look at it. It's like looking at the history for the customer, but now we're looking at the history for the employee. Okay, and we can see the in and outs and the break times. It would have been nice at this point for somebody, and this is, again, could happen through Clip2Go, for somebody to have put a little note in there saying, this is why we have 2 hours that are unaccounted for. We're missing them. Where did they go? What happened to these 2 hours? And you can go back and you can figure out what's going on with your company. Do you see how important this is? Again, can we just increase our productivity of our employees just by a few percentage points? If we can, it makes a huge difference on our profit. So how does Clip help you do this? Again, is you run the payroll report, and in the payroll report, it shows you immediately your actual man hours. Now, this is how we would pay. On Piecework, this is how we pay it. We just run this report, whatever's at the bottom of it, for the week or for the day or for the whatever your pay period is, for the 2-week period, whatever's at the bottom, that 29.817, that's what we're going to pay. That's what we're going to, or that's our that's our actual man hours. If you're paying straight time, that's what you would pay. If you're paying piecework, though, you would pay the 46.1. That's your man hours, hours producing, and clock hours. But notice the difference between the man hours at 46 and the clock hours at 63. Okay, that's a huge difference, and this is the problem that you're going to have, that you're going to eliminate. There's our percentage rates is, you notice he's at 73% when you take the clock hours that you're paying him, if you're paying him by the hour, versus the actual productivity hours, which is 46. Now, when he's on the job, he does really well, but there's something that gets lost there while he's getting onto the job. And this is where you would zero in on your problems with your labor. You got to figure out what's going on with your labor. Right before we get into the next one, there's a question here from Jim. He says, do you create jobs for equipment vehicle maintenance and pay for them? Is there ever conflict with non-production jobs like this? Yes, we do create some jobs, and sometimes we'll have stuff on the sometimes we'll pay for certain jobs that are considered overhead jobs because we need to get them done. Somebody has to do them, and we do need to pay people. But we don't pay the guys for checking the equipment. We don't pay them for cleaning the equipment. We don't pay them for those types of things. We expect those to be done, and that's just part of doing business, because again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make these guys be partners with me. I'm trying to get them to partner with me so that together we will raise our business to a new level, and together they will be with us, and we will be making lots of money together. It's amazing how well this works also. So you enter in the actual pay that you're going to pay. In our case, we're going to pay him. He's got a rate of 12. We're going to pay him the man hours. Remember, the man hours came from this one right over here on the lower left. So we're going to take that 46.1, and we're going to plug it into our Excel sheet, and this is what we're going to hand over to the payroll company and say, John gets $553.20 in pay this week, and that came straight off from the thing, and it's so easy to do. You can do it with your eyes closed if you do this. So what are we talking about? We're talking about making your success is our business. We're talking about making your employees more productive and more efficient, getting the best customers you can, which is, again, what we went over in previous webinars, getting the best customers you possibly can, getting the best and most efficient, most productive employees you possibly can, and your business will then pull up in the middle, and it'll be without headaches, which is the greatest thing. It's like you're getting these people to work for you. You're getting them to take over and to start paying attention. Now, what are the types of things that happen when you start talking about this sort of thing? And some of the things that happen is the guys start doing stuff like giving estimates themselves. And I allow them to give estimates themselves. I don't care, because guess who's going to suffer? If the estimate is too low, who's going to suffer? They will, along with me, because I know that I'm only going to pay so much for this. So if they give an estimate, let's say our man-hour rating is $42. So they give an estimate of a 1.0 on a lawn. They'll look at a lawn. A customer might come, a neighbor might come over and say, "Hey, how much to do my lawn?" Well, I don't want them to get us to go out there and do the estimate and everything else. Remember, I'm in this together. They're partners with me. What I really want them to do is I want them to go look at the lawn themselves and see what they want to do do it for. And if they think it takes them about an hour to get this job done, then they're going to put in the estimate for $42. And now it's a 1.0 property. And if they get the job, then they're going to do the 1.0. And you're going to and they're going to be able to take care of that 1.0 property. Now let's say let's say they underbid it. Let's say they underbid it to, it should have been a 1.1, so they're 10% under. Do I suffer? No, I don't suffer at all. Why not? Because if they're doing it, if they bid it at a 1.0 and it really is a 1.1, they're the ones that are doing the job. I'm still paying X number of dollars in labor, and I know what I'm going to pay in labor, and I'm not going to pay any more for that. You see how it just takes most of the headache and most of the conflict and stuff out, and you put the guys in charge. Now they might say, hey, we're happy to give it away for a 1.0 for $42 because it's right next door to so-and-so. And if you have two of them next door, there's no gate charge, and it's like, we can get this done, and we can get this done faster. And the guys themselves make decisions. They start saying, oh, we can do this better if we do it, if we want more of these properties in this particular neighborhood because we like this neighborhood. It's very flat. It's very easy to work in. I want to do more in that. So they start doing that, and they start trying to get more, and they'll give the right bid to try to get that. So again, what it does is make your guys partners with you. A couple of questions here that are coming up. First off, does cliptrack bonus pay as you described earlier? You mean bonuses as to how many man hours? Well, per se, just like that, no. But sure it does, because if you look at this right here, and you can see that he created 46. Looking at this report, he created 46 hours. You can say for any either bonus for, I'm giving you $1 for every hour produced. Well, that's an extra 46 bucks. Okay, or I'm giving you 25 cents more per hour if you produce 50. Well, he didn't make it. Or any of one of these. But yes, Clip gives you the numbers you need, and then you figure out your bonus system. But the big thing about the bonus system is it has to make your guys pay attention to how much time they're supposed to spend on each property, and it has to make it worth their while. And you've got to overcome this whole overtime thing. This overtime thing is horrid. It's horrid because you're giving this big prize if you take longer. You got to overcome that overtime thing with bonuses. But I say go piecework, and then you don't worry about it. Okay. Dave asks another question. He says, we used to do piecework until labor and industries audited us and said, once we start our first job, we must account for drive time between jobs. Do any experience? I think you mean, do you have any experience with this, with auditing? The important thing that we have found in the research that we've done, and of course this is up to your Department of Labor. That's by state. So, but what we have found in our experience and with our customers that we've talked to is that you have to make sure that you pay them at least minimum wage. That's federal. Okay, you can't get away from that, and you have to make sure that they have signed an agreement ahead of time in your employee manual saying, yes, this is the way we're going to be paid. So you can't spring it on somebody and say, oh, guess what, we're changing everything without getting them to sign it, and then you have to make sure that they make at least the minimum wage. Those are the two things. Now, if I can put this thing together, you're going to get an invitation. Put this thing together for Friday. I would love to have Jonathan here, and he can give you an explanation of how it works in our company and how it's doing. So I would love to do that on Friday. If I can get it together, it'll be Friday at 11 a.m., same time as it was today, and we'll try to get that going. Have Jonathan here so he can answer your questions, practical questions. It'll be more of a question and answer type situation. Another question from Jim says, I heard once that piecework, you might want to up the employee's rate a little bit. Has this been? Yes, and you can up the employee's rate, because you think about it. Let's think easy terms here. Let's say you're paying somebody $10 an hour right now. You're probably paying them more, but let's say you're paying them $10 an hour right now, and they're 75% efficient. Okay? What does that mean? That means that you could, under a piecework system, pay them and you'd be paying them the exact same amount if you increased them by almost 30%. So you paid them $13 an hour and then put them on piecework. It would be the same amount of money that you would be shelling out. Why? Because they're only 75% efficient. But on piecework, by default, they have to be 100% efficient. That's all you're going to pay for them. So you can raise their rate to 13 and put them on piecework, and it'll be the same. You won't pay any more to get the jobs done. So easily you could say at this point, you could say, hey, I'm going to raise you to 11 or to 12, and we're going to go on this system. And you would still save money, and he would make more money too because he's going to produce more in a week. It really is a win-win all the way around. People really like it. Anyway, I'm out of time. If I can put this, the next webinar that we have will be that. We'll be talking about practical implications of piecework. How do I start it? How do I get it going? What are the kinds of situations that I'm going to run into? What are the kind of questions I'm going to have from my employees? How do I present it to them? All that kind of stuff. So we'll be talking about that in our next one, our next webinar that we do on it'll be on this subject. So I'm hoping to get Jonathan in on it because he's been managing our company now for a number of years, and he'll be able to give you his firsthand knowledge. I give you my firsthand knowledge, and from a higher point. But I think Jonathan will be able to talk from a lower point, closer to where the work is getting done. Thank you very much. Your success is our business. We really appreciate you all, and hope you have a great new year. And I hope this year is better than any year you've ever had before. So God bless, and we will see you later.